On today's show, a Darius Garland trade? I don't think it's a good idea, but we will discuss where he could potentially be traded to, what those packages could look like, and why I don't know that it's all that likely. We're going to do that on today's edition of Locked on Cavs.
You are Locked on Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get started here, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked on Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Darius Garland's name has been in the rumor mill over the last week or so about somebody maybe the Cavs could trade. There are folks out there that think it's a good idea. There are folks out there like myself that think it's a bad idea. I have seen a number of different fake trades from a number of different outlets. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like. There's a lot that goes into this. And I don't know that it's all that likely he gets traded. We'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. There are some trades I like more than others. We'll go through some of the fake ones that have been tossed out there. But I wanted to start by talking about why I don't think it's a good idea for the Cavs to trade Darius Garland. I do think that they missed him in this postseason. And of course, he was not healthy. He was out there, but he was not healthy. He could barely move. He struggled running just up and down the floor. He couldn't go side to side. I think it's very clear if you watch that playoff series against Indiana, he was a shell of himself. He very clearly was playing injured. And I think that the Cavs really needed him in that series. They needed his ability to handle the basketball. They needed his shooting ability. They needed a lot of what Darius Garland provides the Cavs they were missing. They needed him last year in the postseason, and he was playing roughly 15 pounds less than what he would have liked to weigh as a result of that fractured jaw that cost him 6 weeks during the start of the season. So when you add all that stuff in, and you want to say, oh, well, Darius hasn't shown up in the postseason. Like, that is fair. I don't know that that's all his fault, though. And I don't want to sit here and defend Darius Garland until, the day's over and act like he's a perfect player, because he's not. There are flaws to his game, and durability is something that you can look at and say, if he were available more frequently, would the Cavs be better off? Sure, but he also just got through a very healthy regular season and injured his toe at the wrong time, and it really cost the Cavs, I think. But that doesn't mean that the Cavs need to move on from him. I think that's a silly thought. I really do. And I understand how much money he makes and how hamstrung the Cavs are going to be financially. And maybe a year from now, this is a different conversation. But I think in 2 of the 3 years that he and Donovan Mitchell have been teammates, things have been pretty good during the regular season, and it's not necessarily translated to postseason success. Year 1 is what it is. Year 2, Garland was not healthy. Year 3, Garland was not healthy. Like, that matters. It matters as part of the conversation, but I'm also not willing to write off him as a playoff performer because he's not had a great postseason yet. I think that's a silly thing to do. I wouldn't do that because I don't think Darius Garland is done growing as a player. And if you listened last week when we talked about the stay or go episodes with Spencer Davies, and we talked about Jarrett Allen, why I'm in favor of listening on deals for him. We talked about Darius Garland, and the big difference there is I don't think Darius is done getting better as a basketball player. I do think Jarrett Allen has probably reached his apex as a player, and I don't know that he's going to be somebody that really helps you win in the postseason. And I do think Garland has that type of future. I still would buy Darius Garland stock. I came on this podcast long before I was ever the host of this podcast and said, I think Darius Garland is going to be an all-NBA guard. I still believe he can do that. Now, a lot has to go right, and I don't know if it's going to happen in this situation, but I still believe that Darius Garland is an all-NBA talent. And I don't think you trade all NBA talents just to trade them. You don't do that. That's not proper team building. And yeah, I get it. Darius Garland, not cheap. The Cavs are going to be in a very interesting financial situation. I expect them to be a second apron team this year. Whether or not they make big changes to the roster, I don't know. But if they do, like, I still expect them to be a very, very expensive team this year. And I would be very surprised if they did things to get out of the second apron right now. A year from now, I can't say that I know that to be true. 2 years from now, would be stunned if that's the case. But for this year, everything the Cavs have done, if you read the tea leaves, if you listen to what Kobe Altman said publicly, all of that points to them being a second apron team, which is fine. You can do it for a year. I think you can do it for 2 years. And then that third year is probably when you got to get out. But that's a bridge to cross when we get there for the Cavs. But if you look at what the Cavs needed in the postseason, they needed shooting. They needed people that could relieve the pressure that the Indiana Pacers put on them. Darius Garland does those two things almost better than anyone else on the roster. There's a discussion as to whether or not he's the best shooter on the roster, but I do think he's the best offensive organizer. He's the best ball handler they have. If they had a healthy version of Darius Garland, they might win those first 2 games. They probably win that series. I think if you look at all the injuries they had, he was by far the most impactful one that they missed the most. And I know part of the conversation out there is, well, the Cavs need to be better defensively. Sure. But if you look at the team they have been in the regular season compared to the postseason in the past few years, the thing that's fallen off for them has not been their defense. It's been their offense. Were they great defensively against Indiana? No. Part of that was I do think the Pacers shot above their heads for a little bit of that series. But where the Cavs lost that series is they were not good enough offensively. They struggled on the offensive end of the floor. They need to be better at that. Now, part of that will come with Evan Mobley developing, but I don't know how many trades are out there that you can look at for Darius Garland, where Darius Garland leaves the Cavs and somebody else comes in. How many deals out there can you make that make the Cavs better offensively? Do the Cavs need to be better defensively? Sure. But I think that part of that is the personnel they currently have can and should be better. This year, they were 8th in defense. I don't care about that. A lot of that was they were trying different things. I think they should be better next year. I think they should have a year under this coaching staff, and doing those different things defensively should make them better. But I don't think that trading Darius Garland for players that are more defensive minded is necessarily going to get this group closer to a championship. I don't. And then the other thing that I look at with trading Garland is it means, one, you are putting more on Evan Mobley, which Evan Mobley is ready for, but you're also putting more on Donovan Mitchell. And what we have seen from Donovan Mitchell consistently in the postseason is, one, that guy can rise to the moment, that dude is a playoff riser. No questions about it. He's also struggled to stay healthy in the postseason. This year, very clearly injured while playing, dealing with an ankle injury, dealing with a calf injury. Last year, missed the end of the series against the Boston Celtics because of a calf injury. He has dealt, just like Darius Garland has, he has dealt with playoff injuries. Do you think that trading Darius Garland away for somebody that is not a top-tier ball handler, not a true point guard, not somebody that can be a table setter, not somebody that can carry the offense in spurts, is going to make that better for Donovan Mitchell? Because I don't. A lot of what this regular season was not just Donovan taking a side step so that Garland and Mobley could grow and develop and be better. Like, that's part of it. But it was also sort of saving Donovan for the postseason. Now, the Cavs got a little unlucky, and I don't know how much the calf injury is connected to the ankle injury he was dealing with, where the ankle injury was nothing but bad luck. Like, that happens. When you step on somebody's foot at the end of the regular season, as he did against the Kings, that is what it is. I don't know how much that caused the stuff going on in the playoffs with his calf, but I think that is unlucky. But you look at this and say, okay, this guy his body has broken down to a different degree in each of the last 2 postseasons. Just trading Darius Garland away and therefore putting more on his plate, because unless you get somebody that's also an all-star guard coming back, there's going to be more on Donovan Mitchell's plate. If you do that, why would you believe that's going to lead to more postseason success? I don't think that this is a deal that makes a ton of sense for the Cavs. There are trades out there that I like better than others, but I don't think I would want to do this if I'm the Cavs. And the way I see it, with the core, there are 4 different options, maybe 5 different options. We'll talk through those and what I view is the most likely, the least likely, all of that. Plus, I've got a couple of fake trades that other outlets have thrown out there. We're going to talk about whether or not I like them right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track of all that cash. But that's where Monarch Money comes in, because they will be your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. In Monarch Money, it's not just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center where you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending right in one place. You stop just managing your money and you can start building your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, even plan for those long-term goals that I know you have. Plus, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all of the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON NBA, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Trading Darius Garland, as I said in the first segment, I don't think is a good idea, but there are a number of different paths forward that the Cavs could take regarding their core. As I've said, basically on every offseason episode so far since the Cavs lost to the Pacers in the second round, I think change is necessary in some way, shape, or form with the Cavs, whether that's changing the core, which I don't think should happen because of what I consider the core to be, or changing the role players, which is the route I would take if I were Kobe Altman. So here are the four routes that I see the Cavs going. They can run it back. The core 4, even though it's not really a core 4, it's a big 3 plus Jarrett Allen. You can run that back. You could trade Jarrett Allen. You could trade Darius Garland, or you could trade both of them. I've talked in different ways about all of these options, and I think the order of likelihood for this is the most likely thing of those 4, Jarrett Allen getting traded. I think that that's probably the best way to help Evan Mobley develop. I think that you would require to get less back for Jarrett Allen than you would Darius Garland. That's part of the thing that makes the Darius Garland trade so difficult to pull off is you're trading a 25-year-old two-time All-Star. You need a lot back for him. Now, maybe there's a team that's desperate and would be willing to overpay for Garland. I do think that, to be clear here, while I don't think it's the best idea for the Cavs to trade Darius Garland away, I do think that Kobe Altman should be answering the phone on him. I don't think that he should be untouchable the way Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley should be. But I think it would take a lot, or should take a lot, I guess I should say. I think it should take a lot for the Cavs to trade Darius Garland. I think that the asking price for him should be very, very high, much higher than it should be for Jarrett Allen. So I think trading Allen and repurposing his salary into a couple of different role player pieces, because he is a high-level role player. I think that's the most likely thing to happen. Then I think the second most likely is run it back. Jarrett Allen returns. Darius Garland returns. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley return. Running it back. Not my favorite thing in the world, but I think that where the Cavs are at right now financially, making big trades like that is difficult. Now, in this situation, this scenario, maybe you re-sign Ty Jerome, which I do think is probably a little bit more likely than not to happen, and you trade away a couple of ancillary pieces, maybe a Dean Wade, maybe an Isaac Okoro, somebody like that. I think that is probably part of the whole running it back, lever that could be pulled. The third most likely, I think trade both. I do think that there's a world where Jarrett Allen gets traded and Darius Garland gets traded. And this team looks much, much different next year than it did this year. I think that is probably the third most likely of the four. And I think the least likely is only Darius Garland gets traded. Because I will say, if the Cavs really want to reimagine this roster, I don't think that this roster should be reimagined with two all-star caliber bigs. I think that's a really difficult way to build things. I do think that repurposing Jarrett Allen into some other stuff, and maybe like one of the deals out there, and really it's two different deals that I have seen that I like, is trading Jarrett Allen to the Pelicans for Herb Jones, and I believe Messi's in that deal too. And also trading Isaac Okoro to the Kings for Valanciunas. That is a deal that I would like, because you get a starting caliber big in Valanciunas, but somebody that, you're probably only going to play 15 to 22 minutes a night. You get another big from the Pelicans that can be your third big that Cavs fans are clamoring for, and you get a wing defender in Herb Jones. I think that would kind of be the thing that I would be looking for. That is a pretty significant transformation, but I also don't think that it makes sense to trade Darius Garland, and we will go through what some of those trades would be like, or look like, I guess, and not trade Jarrett Allen. Like, if you're trading Darius Garland, you're probably doing so to where you're getting multiple pieces back. Like, I don't know that there's a Garland trade out there that is like just a 1-for-1 deal. And I think that's part of the thing that makes this complicated too, because if you are trading Darius Garland, and this is true for Jarrett Allen to an extent, you're probably not getting back equal value, certainly not in one player. Like, you're getting that value split up between 2, maybe 3 players, which complicates things. I think it's easier to justify that when you are trading a borderline all-star as opposed to a borderline all-NBA player, because that's the difference between Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland. Allen's a borderline all-star. Darius Garland is a borderline all-NBA player. Those are two very different thresholds. I think it's much easier to justify trading the borderline all-star for pieces than it is trading the borderline all-NBA player for pieces. Now, team building is going to look much differently moving forward because of the financial ramifications that the new collective bargaining agreement has put into place. But overall, I think it's going to be really difficult if the Cavs do want to trade Darius Garland. I think it's going to be really difficult to get back the pieces in terms of like what the value would look like, how much value or how much you need back in order to get equal value. I just think that the drop off from Darius to that package is probably a little bit tougher to stomach than the drop off from Jarrett Allen to that package. But I do think if you trade Darius Garland, you're probably trading Jarrett Allen too, because you're probably going to want to totally reimagine this basketball team. You're probably going to want to change a ton outside of just the 2 other guys that are untouchable in Mitchell and Mobley. Like, if Garland and Allen both get dealt, there's a chance that next year the only returning guys for the Cavs would be Mobley from the rotation. Mobley, Mitchell, Strus, Hunter, maybe Ty Jerome, maybe Sam Merrill, because I would think Isaac Okoro is probably gone. I would think Dean Wade is probably gone. I mean, Tristan Thompson, not part of the rotation, but he would likely be back. Like, I think that if you trade Darius Garland, you're probably also trying to trade Jarrett Allen too. And this roster looks drastically different than what it was. That is obviously about as far away from running it back as it gets. But I don't think that just because of what you would get in return for Garland, I don't think that it would make sense to run like 2 bigs as frequently as the Cavs do. I think that he's part of what made it work so well is being able to do the pairings, right? Like we saw this year, Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley play a ton together. We saw Jarrett Allen and Darius Garland play a ton together. If they trade Darius, obviously that's not happening. So then you would probably have to switch the pairings, because you would want Donovan Mitchell playing with Jarrett Allen, because Jarrett Allen cannot create his own offense where Evan Mobley can. So you're changing a lot there. And I just don't know if that's the route that makes the most sense moving forward. So I think, again, in order of most likely to least likely, I think it's trade Jarrett Allen, run it back, trade both Allen and Garland, and then just Garland. I don't think that makes a ton of sense to just trade Garland. And again, it's not something I would have all that much interest in doing anyways. There have been a couple of fake trades that have been thrown out there. We're going to talk about a couple of them, how I feel about those next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss it right here on Locked On Cavs. So if the Cavs do decide to trade Darius Garland, there are two teams that I look at and say they should have a ton of interest in Darius Garland if he's available. One is the Orlando Magic. And of course, this has been talked about a ton on social media over the last couple of days, Twitter, Reddit, everywhere. I've seen it. We're going to dive into that. The other one's the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they've been talked about a little bit too. And their head coach, Chris Finch, gave some very interesting comments to reporters. I believe it was at exit interviews after they lost Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals against Oklahoma City. But let's start with Orlando. And this was tossed out there by Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com, and it has been discussed a lot on social media. And Chris proposed trading Garland for, and this is fuzzy just because of the way the cap works and everything, like this might not be the exact trade, but trading Garland for Jalen Suggs and Tristan Da Silva. I am very much out on this trade. I do not think trading for Jalen Suggs would make the Cavs better. I think that trading Darius Garland to an Eastern Conference contender would be a very bad idea too. I really would strongly advise the Cavs to not do that move, because if you want to trade Garland, I think trading him out west to a team that isn't trying to win a title against you or win your conference would probably be the way that you want to go. Jalen Suggs is a nice player. He's a very good defender. He's an okay point guard. He's not the pressure reliever that the Cavs need. And I also don't think that he's a playoff guy. Go back and look at what he did against the Cavs in that series. He was terrible for the Magic. Like, he had one game where I think he was 6 of 13 from three, but overall, I believe he shot under 30% from deep in that series. Now, he's a good defender, but he's not a good shooter. He is not somebody that defenses are going to have to pay a lot of attention to. He's basically Isaac Okoro, but can dribble a little bit better. Why would you want to pay him that much money? I do not think Jalen Suggs is on a good contract. I do not think Jalen Suggs is a player that you look at and say, yes, that guy gets the Cavs closer to where they want to be. He's not been a proven playoff performer. He's not a very good offensive player. Part of the reason why the Magic are so interested in finding a way to get a good point guard is because Jalen Suggs has not panned out. So trading Darius Garland, the money he makes, for Jalen Suggs, who makes like $3 or $4 million less than Garland. Like, he is a very, very expensive basketball player. He's not on a cheap deal. And that is something that you look at and say, okay, well, why would that make sense for the Cavs? Suggs signed a 5-year, $150 million contract. He's very, very expensive, and he's not a good offensive player. And I talked about earlier in this podcast that one of the areas the Cavs need to get better in the postseason is on offense. Jalen Suggs doesn't do that for you. He doesn't. I would not do that trade. I would strongly advise against the Cavs doing that trade because I don't think it makes them any better. I think it makes them worse. And it really doesn't make them cheaper either. Because if you want to trade Garland for pieces, I do think if you look at the money he makes, which obviously very expensive player, having signed that max contract that he did sign, where he's making, yes, much more money than Suggs, but $36 million this year, where next year his cap hit $39 million. So you want to, in essence, try and find two $20 million players that you can break that up into. Because then if you're trying to save money, then you could trade one of those $20 million players for two $10 million players. It's kind of like, and I had this conversation with somebody, with John Corrales, who covers the Celtics, because the Boston Celtics are going to be trading players away. They're going to cut costs. And I'm not at home right now. If you can tell, I'm on vacation. So I don't know if there's a pen in this desk. Yes, there is a pen. Very important for the exercise I'm about to do. But you know where that, like, I don't know how to best describe it, but it's like, watch me trade this pen right here into a house. What the Celtics are going to do, and what the Cavs will probably have to do in the future, is how can I trade this house into a pen? How can I turn this house I'm in right now, this big, beautiful mansion that the Boston Celtics have and that the Cavs aspire to have, which would host a Larry O'Brien trophy in it? How can I turn this into a pen? And then eventually turn that pen back into a house. That is what NBA team building is going to look like. And I don't think you're accomplishing that goal if you're trading Darius Garland, who makes $39 million next year, into Jalen Suggs, who is going to be making, his contract does go down, but he's going to be making next year $35 million. You're not really accomplishing trading the house for a pen there. That's a tough thing to do. And I get his contract goes down and that makes it a little bit more palatable, but I don't think it's a good idea. The other trade that I saw, and I don't love, but I like the concept of it a little bit more, is trading Garland to Minnesota. And I don't know who proposed this trade. I saw it floating around out there without credit. It looked like Bleacher Report, but I'm not positive. And it was trading Garland to Minnesota for Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley Jr., Leonard Miller, and the number 17 pick. I don't hate that package. Now, Mike Conley is going to be 38. He's not necessarily somebody that you can count on to play a ton anymore. He's very much close to the end of his career. But he's a good basketball player still. Jaden McDaniels, I think, would be a guy that if the Cavs trade Darius Garland to Minnesota, Jaden McDaniels needs to be in the package coming back. I would not, if Tim Connolly, the president of basketball operations for the Wolves, suggests anything otherwise, Kobe Allman should hang up the phone. There's not one other player on that roster that you would look at, other than Anthony Edwards, obviously, but that's not happening, and say that guy can be a centerpiece for a Darius Garland trade. Not Julius Randle, not Rudy Gobert, certainly, not Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid's a free agent, but nobody. It's Jaden McDaniels, and figure out the other stuff. The deal that I would most like, and I don't know how to make this work because financially, again, with the Cavs being in the second apron, it's a really difficult place to be. But the deal that I would most like would include Jaden McDaniels and Rob Dillingham. Dillingham was one of the first round picks by the Wolves in this past draft. He didn't play a ton as a rookie this year, dealt with some injuries. He had an ankle injury that kept him out for quite a bit, but he was a lottery pick. The Wolves traded a lot to get Dillingham. He was acquired via trade with the Spurs. I think they gave up like a 2031 unprotected pick to try and get Dillingham at either 8 or 10. I don't remember exactly where he was picked, but he's somebody who I think in pre-draft stuff was compared a lot to Darius Garland. Now, the reason why I would like him, one, he is cost controlled. He's on a rookie contract until 2028. That matters. Two, I do think that if the Cavs want to be sustainable, you have to find an all-star caliber player. And I have no idea whether or not Rob Dillingham is going to turn out to be an all-star. But you have to keep finding younger all-stars. Like, that's not rocket science, right? Part of the reason why the Milwaukee Bucks are in the situation they're in, where maybe Giannis asked for a trade, I don't know. But part of the reason why they're in that situation is their best player was the youngest member of their core. And your window can vanish pretty quickly when you're all in and your best player is your youngest player. Because those other guys, they're going to age out pretty quick. Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, those guys aged out very quick. They traded Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard to try and find offense, but Dame, of course, not young. So finding in Evan Mobley right now is not the Cavs' best player, but the thought is that he will be. But he's also the youngest guy in their core. And if they could add a core player, and again, I have no idea if Rob Dillingham would turn into this, but if they could add a core player that is younger than Evan Mobley, that is the thing that would need to be done to make the Cavs very sustainable. Because there's going to be a time where Donovan Mitchell is going to age out. It's going to happen. I don't know how long Donovan Mitchell is going to play at an all-NBA level. Maybe it's till he's 33. Maybe it's till he's 31. I don't know. Nobody knows. But if you could find a way to trade for Jaden McDaniels and Rob Dillingham, that's the package that I would look at and say, okay, this is what I would want back. That would be, I think, the best case scenario for the Cavs if they trade Darius Garland. But ultimately, I think the best case scenario for the Cavs, just hang on to the two-time All-Star 25-year-old point guard because he's really good, and I don't think he's done getting better, and I think that matters quite a bit. Thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. I will be back tomorrow talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.